All right, so this is part two. The first part we did the idle, the airflow, the idle RPM. All we went through everything, but pretty much spark and torque management, and some of the diag stuff and the codes and whatnot. So on spark's very important. Spark is what the engine uses, the ECM uses first to make idle corrections. If if the idle's starting to dip, we'll be playing with our under and over speeds, and there's gonna be a few tricks I can show you here to help keep one from having idle dip issues and maybe wanting to die when the AC kicks on or what have you. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start at the IET table. Now I don't pull timing for anything up to 104 degrees, so we're going to zero that, and then we're going to come over here and I'm going to select yeah, let's say about right there. What we're going to do is we're going to make it look about like that. Now we're going to have to come in through here and kind of clean all this up. Let's see here, one. All right, that's good enough. We're not going to see this up in here. I mean, all right. So that's it for that table. Now our engine coolant temp. This is another one. We're going to be operating the operating range temperature of the engine, and we're going to be floating around in here. The electric fan vehicles, I mean, I modify it, but sometimes they can get up in here. It gets pretty hot around here. It gets 105, 110 degrees, and you can get up close to 220 sometimes. So I don't pull any timing for normal operating range, and let's see here, and we're just going to pull like 2 degrees across the board here. Really, pulling ignition vents for this isn't going to help save anything. If you're above 230, you got bigger problems. So, but the biggest thing is the normal operating range. We don't want to pull any timing. Alright, so that was engine coolant temperature base, EGR. This truck I don't believe came with EGR, so it's already all zeroed out. If you have deleted the EGR, you need to make sure you zero out this table. The catalyst heating, we need to zero this out. Alright, now on our main spark table here, what we're going to do is, since we're going to be idling at about 900 RPM, we're going to be averaging between these two cells, 800 and 1000. So I'm going to set our base, our idle timing at about 14 degrees. Now I'm going to leave, we're going to make this 18. And then we're going to make this 20. So what this does now, remember folks, this is just to get it started. We're going to smooth all this out later when we're tuning it. We're not going to go from 20 to -1 right here. It'll cause it to do weird shit drivability wise. But anyway, so the reason we're doing this is the 14 degrees gives us some room to play with our over and under tables. We've got overspeed and underspeed tables here to play with. So what's going to happen is it's going to have a base of 14 degrees of timing, and we're putting 18 and 20 over here because if something happens and say the ECU doesn't, maybe your TPS is going bad or something and it doesn't fall into the idle region. Well, what happens if it's not in if it's not in the idle parameters when it comes back down? The over and under timing tables aren't going to save the engine from dipping down in idle. What you'll usually see on the scanner is you can blip the throttle, you can watch the throttle come down, and you'll see it hit your timing. Say we had this 14 degrees across here, it'll hit 14 degrees and the engine will be, stumbling, trying to run, and then all of a sudden 3 or 4 seconds later it'll add timing and the engine will jump right back up to where it's supposed to be and everything's fine. So what we're doing here is we're avoiding that issue by go ahead and adding that additional timing down here, so that if something happens and it doesn't save it, the underspeed table does not save it, this will. So we're going to copy, Control C, and paste this, Control V, into all of the tables. So it's going to be high octane, low octane, in drive, and in park. If you don't forget if you got to make sure all these are always the same, or it will cause you some crazy issues. You'll be making changes and then the change doesn't show when you do your scan. Just make sure you always change all 4 of those. Now on our overspeed table, this isn't the factory setting, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to make our own here. So this is overspeed. So when we're going over our target, we want to pull timing. So we're going to go up to about 50 RPM. We're not going to make a change. And then we're going to say, we'll say -5 for 100 RPM. And then we'll do, let's say 15 degrees for 300. And then what I usually do is I'll zero these out, and then you can drag and select between the two and hit this interpolate, and it will, well, that didn't work, did it? Let's see here, -15 equals, maybe I forgot to put the negative in there. There we go. All right, so that'll go ahead and it'll automatically average it across the board for you there. So if we go 150 RPM above, so if we're at 1050 RPM, this thing's gonna pull 7.5 degrees of timing to try and get that idle back down. All right, so let's go to our underspeed. The underspeed is very, very important. This is probably one of the most important things on here. All right, so we're going to go to 0 to about 3750, and then from 50 we're going to add 3 degrees, and then up to 300 we're probably going to go, we'll probably leave 10, because we're going to be falling down in our, on the timing table, and it's already got 18 degrees, 20 degrees. So if that doesn't pull it back up, then we're pretty much fucked anyway. So we're going to zero that, and then we're going to interpolate between. So we're just going to make that 5, 6, 8, 9. All right. So if we drop 50 RPM below our set point, it's going to add 3 degrees. Now you might have to mess with this a little bit. You may have to add a little bit more timing, but if you get, I like to zero this out, because if you get to adding timing up in here, you can tame the tone of a cam down big time with these over and under speed tables. Can't talk. So I don't like to mess with it around in here. You may even be able to pull some out of the 50, but this'll keep the good sound of the cam. But those should be some decent settings if you match these settings here. All right. So that's that. Torque model, don't need none of that. Torque management. A lot of people like to remove torque management. I like to keep it, especially, I mean, it doesn't do any good if you're running like a turbo 350, turbo 400 transmission. If you're not running an electronic transmission, or you're running a 6-speed, obviously there's no point in having it. But I like to keep it, especially on 60s. There's really no point in making the engine shift. You know, if it's making 450 flywheel horse, and you're making a 1-2 shift, a 2-3 shift, 3-4 shift, there's no point in making it complete that shift under that much power when you can momentarily pull, say, half that power out to help that tranny complete the shift. So to me, it's worth keeping it. The gain you're gonna see at the track by turning it off is not worth the longevity of the transmission. To me, there's a reason they put it there, so I like to keep it. But I will go through here and make sure it is all still in here. Okay, abuse mode. This is modified. I think it's 1600 is the stock setting. Okay, I think I forgot to mention early in part 1. This truck is speed density. So when you convert one to speed density, you have to make sure you set your MAF frequency fail to 0. That's the first part. The second part is under your transmission settings. I think it's under transdiag. This one doesn't have it, but sometimes they'll have a P101 code. If it has a P101 code, it'll revert to full line pressure. You need to disable that so the transmission's not running at full line pressure all the time. You can run it at full line pressure, but it's a really good way to get it hot. The more it runs at full line pressure, you're just heating the fluid. So unless you got a badass cooler and you're watching trans temps, I just let the ECM control line pressure. But if that was on here, you would need to disable that if you do not want to run full line pressure. So the other part, so you set this fail to 0, and you have to come in here on these 3 codes. I don't want it to set a check engine light, but it has to fail on first error. If it's set to no report or second error, what's going to happen is you're going to make a pull. You're going to notice that you need to add some fuel. So say you pull up your VE, find out the area. So like, let's see here, you pull up your VE, say down here you're wide open, and between, I don't know, 32 and 4400 RPM, you need to add some fuel. Say you add 10% fuel, flash it, you go make a pull, and you're still lean in that area. The reason is, if you're still running the MAF and just have it there for the IAT sensor, what's going to happen is it's still going to be reading off of that sensor because it hasn't failed it yet, because it's only on its first error. If you've got it set up to report on second error, which is what it's factory set to, so you'll keep chasing your tail. You might add more fuel and then notice something's going wrong, and then by the time you figure it all out, your VE table's fucked. So make sure you've got this set to fail on first error, or it will keep looking at the frequency table for the MAF until it did. You'd have to do 2 key cycles, which most of the time you're not tuning, you're making a key cycle every time you flash it, so, or at least I am anyway. So all right, that's probably going to be it for this video. I'm going to make another one for transmission tuning and fans, and doing the how to use the gear and tire wizard for adjusting gear ratio and tire size. But anyway, that's gonna be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Appreciate it.